probably do need that. Yeah, side's good. So I'm not as technical as all of the other stuff, but I did drive an EV here, and I'm going to talk about what car seats look like in that vehicle. Before we get started, though, I did want to just go over the objectives. I will talk about our law, which was upgraded in October, and the 4 steps, just basic overview of child passenger safety, things that may affect location and installation in a vehicle, as well as some technology and interactions or potential interactions with car seats. Okay, so here's our law. Basically, the only thing that has changed is that children now under the age of 2 have to remain in a rear-facing car seat. Otherwise, it's the same. We recommended that before anyway, but all children up to the age of 8, and these are minimums in our law, not best practice, have to be in a car seat or booster seat. Again, a child under 2 has to stay rear-facing. Everybody up to 16 has to be restrained in a car seat, booster seat, or seat belt. And children under 16 can't ride in unenclosed cargo beds of pickup trucks. So that's it. The way our law is enforced has to do with the classification of the vehicle. So it has to do with Class A passenger vehicles, Class M multi-purpose, which would be SUVs, minivans, things like that, and pickup trucks, which are Class E, I think. So that means Uber and Lyft drivers typically drive one of those vehicles types in terms of how it's registered in Maryland. They have to follow our law. Daycares and church groups have to follow our law. Of course, it has to do with how the vehicle is registered, but we always recommend that if you're traveling in a car, that you follow the car seat law, even if it would be exempt from some of these classifications by the way the vehicle's registered. The exception would be taxi cabs, although those seem to be going less popular just because of Uber and Lyft and other rideshare opportunities. All right, let's see if this works. Looks like it might. So this is kind of why we use car seats. An older van showing unrestrained passengers. It's all about energy. An object in motion is going to stay in motion until acted on by an outside force. What were those outside forces in this case? Well, the driver had the airbag but no seatbelt. The kids were flying until they hit the windshield. They also hit each other. Those are not things that anyone wants to hit regardless of, how fast you're going. And the other thing to keep in mind is that vehicles are usually tested and car seats between 30 and 35 miles an hour, hitting a fixed barrier. So that is a lot of energy, but the way people are driving these days, it does not seem like you're traveling very fast. Whoops, and here we go again. Let's get you out of here. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the types of seats that are out there, selecting the right seat for the child's age, weight, developmental needs, things like that, the direction that seat should be facing or the child should be facing, and then where it should be installed in the car. Harnessing and installation are also very important key components, but I'm not going to touch on that today. So we basically say there are 4 steps of protection, starting rear facing, then you move on to a forward facing harnessed car seat, then a booster seat, a belt positioning booster is the official term, and then a seat belt. And that would be the 3-point seat belt would be better than just a lap belt, but a lap belt's better than no belt. And we don't see lap belts so much anymore. At least I haven't. How many of you have used a car seat lately? Okay, so we've got a good number. I had my kids almost 23 years ago. I have twins. And car seats have changed a lot, and this is my job, so I get to keep up with it, but it's pretty overwhelming. So the way they look, the size, what the size child that they hold has really expanded over time. So most people are familiar with the rear-facing only seats. That's like this. It's the carrying style of car seat. Convenient. Baby's sleeping, you can pop in and out of vehicle to vehicle. You've got a base that typically stays in the vehicle. The center seat is a rear-facing convertible. That means it goes rear-facing and forward-facing. Many rear-facing convertibles and rear-facing all-in-ones go up to about 40 to 50 pounds rear-facing. And then forward-facing, they usually go up to, the minimum's 40 pounds, but typically it's about 65 pounds. So you're holding a pretty big-sized child in the harness system of a car seat. An all-in-one is kind of a newer trend in car seats. And this one, typically they have 3 or 4 uses. This one is rear-facing, then forward-facing with the harness, and then you can convert it or change it to a booster. Some become backless boosters, so they're called 4-in-1s. Read the labels because, of course, how the manufacturers define them and how, how the car seat is used might be different. There's no standard term for that. Forward-facing, we have the convertible facing the front. A combination car seat is one that is forward-facing only with the harness, and then it turns into a booster seat. And then we have the all-in-one, and this is showing the 2 forward-facing uses, booster and harness. And then 2 types of booster seats, high back, backless, pretty self-explanatory. The advantage of one over the other would be that the high back may provide better positioning, keep the child a little more centered, keep the seatbelt in the right spot. Many of those also have a telescoping back so that the seatbelt will be positioned properly on the child as the child gets taller. Some of them you can even remove the back on the booster seat. And then a backless booster, much more portable. In terms of where you would place these in a car, you definitely have to have a head restraint or a higher seat back behind a backless booster. You want the child to have that head and neck protection just like an adult does, or just like the high back booster provides. And then we have the seat belt. So this is showing a larger child. He's probably 2, maybe 3, and he's facing the back. He's in a convertible seat. It's still protecting his head, neck, and spine. So think about when you're in a collision, hopefully you're not, even if you brake really fast, let's say that, and you're in your car seat and it's facing the back, or your child's in the car seat and it's facing the back, you slam on the brakes, which way is this car seat going to move? It's going to move down and forward. So it's going to cradle the child and move with the child. Everybody's moving towards the front of the car. It will come back towards the back of the car as the secondary motion. If you got rear-ended, it would go towards the back of the car first, but basically we don't test car seats for that. So this child is, his head, neck, and spine are protected by that car seat. It may shift forward. It's really keeping those bones and muscles protected. We want you to max out this stage before moving to the forward-facing position. So looking at the picture, I know what you want to say. So go ahead and say it. What about his legs? Okay. So how many of you have seen a child who's in a rear-facing car seat? If you've been a first responder, how many of you have seen a child with broken legs who is facing the back? Okay. You have. Okay. How many of you, what do you think in terms, was it a young child or an older child or year and a half? Was it a severe crash? Yeah. Legs, we don't want to break our legs, but certainly that type of a crash might have had a different outcome if the child was not facing the back, because other things can't be fixed as easily as legs. Also think about the way that the seat's moving, the legs are going to kind of fly and move with the child. So they're very flexible. Kids then sit in weird positions that I can't do. I'm not a yoga person, but it would definitely, they can withstand that kind of force. We still can't fix necks and spines very well. So we'd rather fix a leg if that happens. But surprisingly, the injuries are not showing up very commonly in the emergency departments when a child's rear facing. Now what did I do? Let's go over here. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to show you what that looks like in the 2 different directions. Again, 30 miles or 35 miles an hour. Same child who's a year old, properly secured car seat. This is an older style car seat, but it would be secured the same way. They are still testing car seats on this type of a seat with a lap belt, which is, they're moving towards more advanced testing. But look at the motion. All you really see are the crash test dummy child's toes, a little bit of a head. So you're still protecting those vulnerable parts. Now we have the same child strapped in the right way, car seat secured the right way, and I want you to notice the difference in how that child moves. So the torso is held back because the straps are holding the child back, but there's so much motion of the head and neck and flexing, and the arms and legs fly forward. So what happens with kids often when they're forward facing is heads, arms, and legs fly forward. What are they hitting? They're hitting the back of the seat in front of them, or they're hitting the side of the car. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you look at car seats in cars is instead of thinking you want something in front of them to stop them, you really want nothing in front of them so they have clearance. I did it again. Okay, well, we'll see that again. They're all going now. They're not very long. Sorry about that. Let me see if I can do it that way. I don't know where my little mouse is. We're going to just keep watching this and watching this. I don't know what's happening. There, okay. Forward facing. So once the child has outgrown the rear facing direction, they work similarly. They're going to really just hold the torso back though. The child will still slow down. The straps on the car seat are definitely built for the child, better than a seatbelt is. And they'll stay in the upright position. You want to max out this stage too. You don't want to skip ahead just because your child looks big or doesn't like it or none of their friends are riding that way or whatever. You want them to stay in the protection that was designed for them. So where are we going to put the car seat? Well, obviously, if you had just one child and you had a big vehicle, the center would be the most insulated from any type of impact, side, front, back. It's not always compatible. Sometimes the center seat is pretty skinny. A lot of times it is. It also depends on how you want to install the car seat. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. Again, children should ride in the back seat if they're under 13 just because of airbags and energy in the front. And also because of that bone development. And you also have to look at who else rides in the car. So we'll have parents come to us and they want the car seat behind the driver's seat. But one parent, the shorter parent, drove the car there. So as soon as you put the rear-facing car seat behind the driver's seat, the parent's suddenly like, oh, well, you know, my spouse is 6'5" and has to push the seat all the way back. I don't think he'll be able to drive. And we don't want him driving like a clown car. We want him to be safe too. So you have to think about everybody who rides in the car. If you have a rear-facing car seat next to a door, do other people have to get out? Are they going to have to climb under or climb over or go out in the traffic side on the driver's side? So all of these are factors that we want people to consider, hopefully before we get to the point of helping them and putting everything in. There are two ways you can install car seats. Latch, which stands for lower anchors and tethers for children. And lower anchors are the primary method of installing the car seat. Those are special straps on the car seat that connect to two places in the vehicle. They are bars. The tether is the top strap that you would only use for forward facing. So that is not used rear facing, but the whole system is called latch. The seat belt, lap shoulder belt, if you're using a seat belt to install a car seat with a forward facing car seat, we still want you to use the tether. And I'll show you that, some pictures later. But wherever you are in a car, there should be a seat belt to use. So even if you don't have lower anchors available, definitely install with the seat belt then. And that might be the case in the center. Again, the tether for forward facing, it's going to reduce the child's head movement 4 to 6 inches, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you think of the seat moving forward, the car seat stretching forward, and then the child's head moving forward, 4 to 6 inches can make a big difference in protecting the child from injury. So again, use the tether for forward facing. installations, whether you're using lower anchors or the seatbelt. So this video, sorry about the blurriness, is showing two car seats, same size dummy. They're side by side, but we're showing you facing each other. And it's going to show you the tethering versus not tethering, if it works. And if it doesn't look like it works. Okay, basically the one on the left, the pink one, you can sort of see in a very blurry way that it was really pulled forward. That was not tethered. The one on the other side was tethered. There's still a lot of movement, but not hitting this dummy on the left. The head struck the seat in front. Sorry about that. So now let's talk about EVs. This is what I drove here today, our 2022 Chevy Bolt EV, which is actually kind of fun to drive, I must admit. I was skeptical, not so excited about this being a fleet vehicle for the state of Maryland. There's still some downsides, practical matters of traveling all over the state on hilly terrain with a shorter span of before you have to charge, and then where do you charge and what do you do while it's charging, and all of those things, which of course I like to think about. This is the car I drove. So believe it or not, even though it kind of looks like a roller skate on, you know, a small but mighty roller skate, it has met the NHTSA 5-star rating. So it's got a lot of really great safety features. The safety features on the in black are the driver, like crash avoidance safety features, which are great. I'm not going to get into that, but it does lots of stuff to keep you from getting into a crash, which is really nice. The yellow highlighted safety features are those that protect the occupants. So it does not have dynamic head restraints. I don't know if some of you have seen or know about Volvos and other vehicles that have something called whips. So the head restraint stays with the head and moves back and protects from that whiplash protection. This car does not have that, but it does have head restraints in the front and back. It has advanced belt features and a seat belt reminder system. So the seat belt reminder system, of course, would be the front seat. But if you open your back door, which parents will do to put their children in, it will, when you turn off the car, it will give you a check back seat. Now that's not going to really protect, if you ignore it, it's not going to beep and make noise and honk and tell other people that there's a child left in the car, but it does give you that reminder. I'll talk a little bit about that advanced belt feature. It's actually a pyrotechnic belt tensioning device. So if you're in a collision, in addition to airbags, it has a feature that doesn't just lock with inertia, it actually pulls down and stops you. It makes the belt even tighter on your body. So you're going to meet the airbag in a more friendly manner, I guess you'd say. So there was a recall with that. Think about a pyrotechnic. Didn't happen in our car, thank goodness, but they did just repair it. So apparently, after a collision, it would catch the carpet in the car on fire. So they fixed it with some kind of metal something or other, and hopefully that prevents that. And I really don't want to ever test that, but that is what it does. So here's what happened when it was crashed. I didn't do this, but this was online, a 35-mile-an-hour fixed barrier. The good thing to pay attention to is that the passenger compartment stayed intact. It really held up pretty well. I feel good about that. I still feel small in it, but I feel good about the fact that the crumple zones and all of the airbag technology and the rigidity of that occupant really make a difference. Does it ever have airbags? So this is not the Bolt, but it has all these same airbags, so I'll tell you some of them. So you've got the frontal airbags, the driver and front seat passenger. It also has knee airbags, which is pretty cool because what happens a lot of times is that your hip is going to kind of slide forward anyway, so it's going to protect your lower extremities from getting crushed into the vehicle. It has side curtain airbags that will cover from the front seat to the back seat. It also has something quite unique. the torso airbags. Now it has those in the front seats, but it also has them coming out of the shoulder bolster in the back seat, which I was kind of surprised about because most of the cars that have that are high end. So this is a picture from the Bolt where I don't know if you can see the red arrow is the tag that says airbag. So it actually comes out of the side of the cushion in the back seat. And that is a car seat installed in the vehicle, which I have outside with dolls and car seats in it, so you'll be able to see what it looks like. I didn't keep the dolls in overnight because I didn't want people breaking windows or anything. This is what the inside looks like. Now I can tell you that looking at the outside of a car and putting car seats on the inside of the car may be a mismatch, because 23 years ago I came home from the hospital with my twins correctly secured in their car seats in the back, with me back there too, in a 2-door Dodge Neon. Standard that I was driving while very pregnant. We all fit in the back, no problem. I have had struggles with people who've had Cadillac Escalades, or I don't know if I say that right, big cars. Car seat, the vehicle seats configuration and the fact that they didn't move forward and back and have a lot of flexibility to them made it almost impossible to safely transport this family in this vehicle, because we couldn't get the car seats needed for the kids to fit. And then you can't get to the third row. So I did get a minivan, I'll tell you that, just because I knew we'd be hauling kids. But one of the things that really makes a difference in terms of the space might have to do with the shape of the vehicle. A lot of them now are sort of sloping towards the back, which makes head space a little smaller. You also have these new things they're putting in vehicles. You can kind of see where the seat belts are connected. There's little tushy bumps that kind of move outward. That's probably more comfortable for us. It makes installing a car seat sometimes a little tricky. But this doesn't have too many humps and bumps. It's a pretty flat and straight bottom cushion and back cushion, so it shouldn't be difficult to install car seats in this for the most part. But anchor points and seat belts, sometimes they have 3 seat belts, but you can't put 3 people in that at the same time. If you want one person in the middle, they'll fit, or if you want people next to the door, but you can't put a person on the driver's side and in the middle next to each other because the seat belts come from behind one of the seats. So, you know, officially it'll take 5, but not at the same time. They don't ask us, you know, that's the problem. So this is the Bolt with 2 rear-facing car seats. So you see the rear-facing only, which is the handle style, and then you see the rear-facing convertible. I installed both of them with the seat belt. Like any scenario with 2 or more car seats, it's more common to place the 2 seats next to the doors. You know, if you have one child, the middle's an easy choice if it works. If you have more than one, you know, do you select which kid you love the most or something to put in the middle? So, or do they get along? You know, you might have one kicking the other one, poking, prodding, all the things that kids do. So separating is not always a bad idea. But it also has to do with space. So the seat on the right is the convertible, the larger seat. It's an all-in-one, this particular one, so it can go rear-facing to 50 pounds. It is set up in an angle for an older child, so it wouldn't be okay for this infant the way it's positioned now. It would need to be more reclined, which would take up more room in the car. But for an older child, it would work great. It also has what we call a no rethread harness system, which means that the whole headpiece moves up and it adjusts the straps higher as the child grows. So that makes life easier for adjustment purposes, and it also takes a little less space in the car. So you have an infant seat and you could put a 4-year-old in this other seat next to it. They're not going to take, this seat takes about as much space just because of the angle it has to be in. So you would have to really pay attention to the driver seating position to know who's going to go where. And if you had the vehicle seat set back further, it might make sense to put the convertible behind the driver because it can sit more upright for the older child. So all of these are things you have to think about. You have to place it in there, kind of look at the angles, decide how far back you need the seat to be. This is the side view. So that's the same seat, the Britax, all in one. And it looks like it's touching the front seat. I slid that front seat back, and it was further back than the driver's seat was. So it was in a very safe and comfortable position. It was not braced against the seat. You can see that the head restraint portion has a little gap between it, so you can move that up even higher as your child grows, and you're still going to have space. Again, if you rotate it more upright for the older child, who they like to sit up more, then you might have even more space in the vehicle. But it worked quite well, and you know, it would make sense. If you only had one child and needed it to be more reclined, moving that seat into the center, then it would fit between the two front seats. I did want to talk about, I'll talk about that next. The picture on the right is actually both seats side by side from looking back from the front seat, and you can see that the seat belt buckle is still available for the center position, and the seat belt is still accessible, but you would have to be about this wide, and it really wouldn't be a very safe place to sit, but it is available. It wasn't overlapping or anything like that. So now we have a forward-facing seat. Again, this seat has that no rethread harness, so the headpiece telescopes up, and I raised it kind of high. So this is the center seating position. I think it's sort of the angle of the camera, but you can see it does overlap or move into both of the side seating positions. So it would be a tight fit if you had this in the center. It also pretty much obliterates the driver visibility out of the rear view mirror. Although again, I have safety features. I have blind spot recognition and all that, so maybe I wouldn't want to see anybody coming up behind me that fast anyway, right? So this is what it looks like in the middle. You can see from the side also. One thing that most forward-facing car seats have to have is they have to be supported completely on the vehicle seat cushion, so they shouldn't stick off or hang off. So even in big vehicles, say pickup trucks, sometimes the back seat of a pickup truck isn't as deep as the front seat. So you may have trouble fitting a car seat on that with too much overhang, even though it's a large vehicle. You want to have the bottom seat cushion support the car seat. Sometimes for rear facing, it's usually an 80% rule where you can't have it stick off more than 20% of the car seat. But there's different crash dynamics. You definitely want to use your top tether. But you can see that this takes up a lot of space in the car. The same seat is now moved over to the side, so I can see out of my rearview mirror. It also would allow more space for another passenger in the back seat. But check out where the head part is if a child's sitting in that. There's not a lot of roof clearance. So this is something that's kind of a new issue. One car seat manufacturer actually specifies that they want 5 inches above the child's head and the roof line. Kind of makes sense, right? But there are SUVs that have like that stadium seat in the 3rd row, sits up a little higher, so it's really not made for adults. This would be the one manufacturer would not want you to put your car seat in that seat. So you might need one that sits a little lower on the vehicle seat. I'm also curious, I don't know the answer to this, but because of the side curtain airbag, I don't know if that would still deploy the right way, although I think it would because it would come down. But again, it's pretty, the head wings, which are going to protect the child, they weren't jammed up against the C-pillar, but they were definitely pretty close. So that was something, and the other side lumbar airbag should not be an issue, because basically I always look at side airbags as I'd rather have that between me than an intruding vehicle and metal. I'd rather have something else. So that would be the other thing. So those are some things I don't know the answer to, but I thought it was kind of an interesting setup, just playing around with the height of the car seat and how it looked in the vehicle. Again, we're seeing the side view. It's not hanging off, and you definitely want to use that top tether, and the picture on the right showing that it's really easy to access the top tether and use it. The other thing that I did find out about the Bolt is that the head restraints in some vehicles are removable. So sometimes it's hard to fit a car seat, a taller car seat in because of the head restraints pushing forward, and it pushes the car seat forward before you've installed it. They don't want big gaps behind it. So sometimes you can remove the head restraint as long as the car seat is supporting the back of the child's head and it's not required by the car seat manufacturer. It always boils down to read the instructions for the car and the car seat. And they, believe me, there's a lot to each thing. They're all a little bit different. So the moral of the story is that space does matter. My role in helping caregivers is sometimes a lot like Tetris or figuring out a puzzle. And that's what makes it really fun, is who rides in this car and what do they sit in? And we'll go from there. But there are lots of factors that can affect the safety of the car seat, the installation. It has to do with the car seat, it has to do with the child, and it has to do with the vehicle, and it all has to work together. So it does matter. Doesn't really matter if it's an EV or not, it still matters. This is our contact information. Sorry, we do have it on the handout here, which is the Maryland law and check your child's car seat. And do you have any questions? Yes, sir. Okay.
One is going back to the pickup, 80/20
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not 100% sure. I think it's Alabama that has the T-bar that goes down to the floor.
Oh, the stability leg.
Yeah, is that 80/20 rule still in effect if it's that model, or is that?
I know Nuna is one company that we have asked before with pickups and where it was definitely more than 20% overhang. And with that load leg or stability leg that braces the car seat on the floor, they permitted it. But I would check with the manufacturer. But that's a great question. Another interesting point, though, is if you have stow and go vehicle seats, like in a, I don't know what, caravan type thing, because those seats are kind of hollow, the floor of the vehicle is a little bit more hollow, they may not allow you to use a stability leg because it may not have the right structure for that.
The second question.
Mm-hmm.
Ford and Mercedes, maybe other manufacturers have
Inflatable airbags. Yep.
How does that affect entering the seat?
Excellent. People often don't know that's what they have in the back seat. Many people don't know the back seats of their cars, right? Until they're about to have their child. They just bought this beautiful new Ford Explorer that has inflatable seat belts. So typically you either have to use lower anchors. Now there is a weight limit to lower anchors, so that's a whole other issue. They came up with this technology that has limitations from the start. So child weight and car seat weight can't exceed 65 pounds to use the lower anchors as your primary method. You have to use the seat belt. But some car seat manufacturers have tested with those car seats and allow the seat belt to be used. Now it would only be because like a booster seat, or if you install this without the base, the lap part is not inflatable. That will lock. The shoulder belt's going to come up like this. If it deploys, it shouldn't affect the installation. But each car seat manufacturer will let you know if you can use their car seat in an inflatable seatbelt scenario. So we got airbags everywhere. Oh, yes. And we are still doing video car seat assistance, which has really worked well. where we use Zoom and the caregiver's at their house. They go out to their car and we're watching, telling them to move their camera a certain way and having them be our hands and check the car seat, and we go through like a tutorial with harnessing the child, installing the car seat. We've gotten pretty good at it, and it's very gratifying to the caregiver, and it's much more convenient than having to go somewhere.
Claire, I can't say thank you enough.
Thank you.
For coming today.
It was fun.
We have a lot of stuff, cool stuff for you.
I think you gave me.
Yeah, but
Oh, thank you.
again,
And
we're
I
at
have
one-